All right, so welcome to Coffee and Miracles. Yay! I have a really special miracle to share with you today. It's it's a real special one because of this is a big one, and I don't really remember the exact date that this happened. It's before I had dates in my calendar. I didn't have a calendar back then on a cell phone. I didn't have a cell phone in those days. But this is what happened. So around this time of year, my daughter she was about, I want to say 6 or 7 years old, and she was figure skating. Like she started figure skating when she was almost six, so she was like still five. And she had two coaches and she was doing real well. She was competing. And one day she just mentioned that it was hard for her to breathe, or she was having pain when she breathed, when she was, because that's extreme exercise that you're doing. And that was odd. And so her coaches came to me and said, that's not right. And you probably want to take her to the doctor. So we did that, not thinking it was going to be anything big at all. And so the doctor did some kind of a heart test or something like that. I forgot what you call, maybe an echocardiogram, something like that. When we were there, but then decided he wanted to put a heart monitor on her for like a month, or no, it was a few days, or something like that. The very beginning, it was a few days. And so we went home and it was doing its thing. And we got a phone call, I want to say a couple of days later, and from the doctor. Now, I've gotten a couple of calls from the doc. I mean, normally you get calls from the doctor's office. You need to schedule this or whatever. We have some test results for you or whatever that is. You very rarely get a call from the doctor. So the first time that happened was with my daughter, and the doctor was actually on the phone, and that scared me because I thought they did that. And so the doctor said, "Where is your daughter?" And I said, "Well, she's," it was middle of the day, morning, I think. And so he said, "Well, call the school right now. Tell them, don't let her do any exercise at all. And she needs to do that for like a month. No exercise at all." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because and I think it's called the ventricles, there's like two, and one of them was enlarged in her heart, with her heart." And he said, "I don't know if this is congenital, meaning she was born with it. If that's the case, there is nothing we can do, and it's not going to get smaller on its own, and she is likely going to have a life where she can't be active at all, because she just dropped dead one day." And I was just really getting scared. And I'm like, "Okay, what's the other alternative?" And he said it could be due to a virus. But I will tell you, he told me, if it's a virus, it's not, it happened because she had some sort of virus, and 2 weeks prior to this, she had had a cold. I mean, it was not a big thing. And apparently, that can enlarge your heart somehow. Still don't understand exactly why, but when it does, he said she still needs to not do anything for at least a month, come back and we'll check her to see how she's doing. But he said, even if that's the case, it will take a year or two to go back to normal. It takes time. And my daughter was jumping and running all over the place. And so I got off the phone with him and I immediately called her school and I said this whole thing. And it was really hard to get a 6 or 7-year-old not to be running around, jumping around. She felt fine, unless she did extreme exercise. So she wasn't doing that for a month. And this was way before Facebook. I wasn't on Facebook, and until 2008 when my daughter went off to college, I think it was. And so there were not even, Facebook groups. I wasn't in any of that. It was back to this, how long ago this was. My daughter's 33. Yahoo groups, you remember? Yahoo groups. Um, so I got on my Yahoo groups and I messaged all of them and I said, you have got to pray. You have got to pray because I mean, it's hard to tell a young child not to run and jump around. And I was afraid I would scare her anyway. But so she was told not to jump around, but we didn't know if that would, if she'd do it anyway. Um, we were scared that something would happen, it would get worse maybe. And I messaged all my Yahoo groups. I messaged everybody I knew. I called everybody I knew to pray. And we prayed and prayed. And I remember thinking that verse, pray without ceasing. For me, that meant almost every minute of every day when she was gone. And then while she was home, I was, constantly letting, don't jump around, don't do anything. And she was upset about that. And so that was hard. And it was a very, very long month. And so at the end of the month, we went back in to that doctor's office and he was astounded because she was healed. He says that doesn't happen. It takes like a year or two in order to go back to normal. And he was just amazed that it was completely healed. And we were just, I mean, I remember feeling when we were praying, I remember praying all the time, all during the day and before I went to bed, when I woke up in the morning, I mean, it was constant. And there was a time where we'd been doing that, my husband and I, and everyone we knew was praying for her and messaging us and telling us they were praying and how she's doing. And then there was a time when I don't remember exactly when it was, like the month was almost over, but not like a day or two. Maybe it was like a week or a week and a half before the end of the month. I remember feeling, you've prayed, God will answer. You don't need to continually pray. God knows, and God will. And so I stopped being very fervent in I mean, because it was constant all the time. And so when we went back in, that's what we were told. And I was just amazed because I had almost prepared myself for her life maybe ending or her life being very dull and boring and unsatisfying for her because she was an athlete. She loved doing all the things. She loved, I mean, she was competing in USFSA at that time in figure skating. She was doing all kinds of other activities and it just, those two options of her dying or not being able to live the way she wanted, neither of those was anything I wanted for her because I knew she didn't want that for her. And so we were devastated and just praying constantly. And when he told us, because he did another test and he looked and it was not enlarged. And we were all just amazed at what God can do. So I just want to share that with you because I don't remember the exact date. So I don't think I'll ever know. Maybe my husband knows. He's better at that than I am. Unless I write it down, I don't know. But I just want to bring you, there are some major things that God does. Some of them are things that I mean, it's just big. With my daughter, she's 33, and I don't know if she would have gotten to 33 had that not happened, had God not healed her heart. So just know that those miracles are out there. Look for them, even the small ones. Like I'll be sharing some small ones later on in the coming weeks, but this was a huge one. So I don't know if any of you have ever had a big, huge miracle in your life. We've had several. For one for each of the four of us in my immediate family. And so I'm going to be sharing some of those. And this was like a really big, huge one. So if you have any, I'd love to hear. Put your, if you want to share it publicly, you can put it below this video. Otherwise, you can take it to Messenger. Excuse me, let me know because it's just, I love to hear these stories of how God answers prayer. Anyway, that's our incredible miracle story of our daughter.